Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Terry Zachary is the author of Great Hands, Great Life. He's a chiropractor by training, but Terry's fascination with the mechanics of the hand came about from a most interesting bump in the road. Terry left his practice to follow his dream of playing professional golf. Along the way, he found himself helping numerous athletes with hand injuries. His knowledge grew, and he created new treatments to address the grip injuries that he was seeing. That led to his inventing Handmaster Plus, a hand exercise system that helps athletes, musicians, and even people with arthritis address their hand and joint issues. And it's all because he followed his dreams. Please welcome Terry Zachary to Bump in the Road. Terry, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Well, Pat, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you. I'll give you my background a little bit. So when I was a young kid, I was a sports junkie. That evolved into the sport that really got me, I think, looking at details, which was golf. I started in hockey. I played basketball as well, quite seriously, both of those. But golf is the one I think that really got me looking at intricate mechanics and whatnot. And as I went to choose a career as I got older, I chose to be a sports chiropractor. I felt like that really challenged me in the mechanics, and it really filled me up, and it was a good direction for me, really. But the golf never went away. I got in practice, and I was in practice, and there was a point where my father actually passed away, and it was something where I think I came to a realization where life doesn't go on forever, and I always had this itch that I could play on the PGA Tour. I could play professional golf for a living, and I felt intuition calling me. And so I took time off of practice. I knew I had something to fall back on. So it was risky, but not, crazy risky. But I went and followed my passion. And just so that I don't get you too far led along, I did not make the PGA Tour. But what I did learn from it is I was in my expertises. I saw a lot of I was approached by a lot of the professional golfers with different health problems, physical health problems, as they found out I was a sports chiropractor. And that really got me to, that was the basis of what I was to do for the future. I ended up really identifying repetitive grip problems. And that led me to really studying the hands and the fingers and the thumbs and the carpal tunnel and the wrist and the elbow, which is where all these repetitive grip injuries showed themselves. And so I learned those inside out on the highest level with these repetitive grippers as professional golfers. And I also learned a lot about, golf itself by pursuing this goal, but also I watched how golfers prepared themselves. So I really learned a lot about stretching and a lot about the time that people have available for stretching. So from that, we developed a business. I was sad not to make the PGA Tour. I don't want to lighten that up, but it really flowered this creativeness inside of me that said, I've got to figure out this repetitive grip problem that all these athletes are having. None of them understood this area and the way grip works. And so I developed a product called Handmaster Plus, and now we sell that all over the world, and it's been fantastic. And I love getting up in the morning and teaching people about their hands and their grip. And so everything that happened to me, your bump in the road is just a beautiful motto for me, because it was a bump in the road that led me to a place that I just absolutely enjoy what I'm doing today.
I think that's so neat. It takes guts to take that side path, not to just pursue that linear career. That's not an easy decision.
It's not. I learned a lot about even that specific subject that you're talking about there, Pat, because you become, I was never stuck to the title. I will tell you that. Your patients come in and it's like, hello, Dr. Zachary. And I was really one where I said, I am going to work with you and teach you about how to take care of yourself. And yes, I'm going to help you correct your spine. And because I did sports, we worked with extremities and stuff as well, and exercises. But you're the healer. I want you to understand you're the healer. I want you to take care of yourself away from the office. I want to teach you good habits. But there still was, even as I say that, there was a part of me that really heard, hello, doctor. And like, that was my identity. And it was interesting to all of a sudden throw that away, and not throw that away, but set that aside. And, where I would at a dinner party and somebody would say, well, what do you do? Then it became a bit of a rambling explanation. And even I learned a lot from that, is you are not just what you do. And to blur that boundary was more uncomfortable than I thought it would be. But I learned a lot from, well, now all of a sudden I've become a grip expert and a stretching expert and a golfer. And that was different from, I am a chiropractor in my community of Langley and Cloverdale, British Columbia. The identity changed, and it took guts to do that. And I didn't think it was that gutsy until I did it and fell into that no man's land. And I learned a lot about that I'm bigger than what I am.
But you have good,
excuse me.
You have good golf stories to tell.
Got a lot of good golf stories to tell, and played with a lot of great players, and I learned a lot. And as you and I have talked before, Pat, I do some coaching just of my kids and in the community. But I learned a lot of what great players do and how they prepare to become great at their particular pursuit. And mine happens to the main one I studied, obviously, was golf. So I learned a lot from looking at the inside too. And I was a hard worker, and I was a studier and a learner. And I think I enjoyed that aspect of it as much as, and I do have many golf stories, but I think that was one of the things that I really stuck with me, is I got to see some great players. I mean, I played in the Canadian Tour a bit, and I played on mini tours, and there was a guy named Mike Weir that everybody's ever probably heard of that won the Masters, a major winner, and he's won other events on tour. Just to watch him go about his business on the driving range and on the practice greens, that was really interesting to me, and it made me realize that whatever you're going to pursue, you have to pursue it with practice, with learning. You got to chew the chicken off the bone type of thing to get to be elite at what you do. And if you're going to do something, why not do it well?
Well, that goes to the notion of surrounding yourself with people better than you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pat, in golf, I can tell you that's always been the case, and I've always noticed that. When you go and play with players, even going on the professional tour, I had a lot of success in college golf. And I knew, and I was also playing in the lower mainland of Vancouver, Canada. That was a hotbed for professional golf. There's a lot of great players that would be around there. And I was doing well. But when you step out and you play mini tours and you play Canadian Tour events and you play some of the bigger stuff, you're kind of punching above your weight all of a sudden. And what it does to you is it elevates you. You get into that energy and that atmosphere. And, you either get chewed up and spit out, or you just kind of, you show up and you work your rear end off to elevate.
What are some of the better metaphors that come out of your golf experience?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I think one of the best metaphors that I still would use in my life daily is that we focus on our target, not on the problem. We really focus on our goals. For example, if I'm standing up on a, if any of your listeners are golfers out there, but you can imagine if I'm looking and there's trees on both sides and maybe there's sand traps somewhere, and when I look down the fairway, I for my body to engage and do it and perform a difficult task, which means putting that golf ball on the fairway, I have to focus on that part of the fairway or that target that I'm hitting for. I don't focus on what I'm not what I'm trying not to hit at. Because I know that our higher self inside is always saying yes type of thing. So if I say, don't hit it in the trees, that's, my mind is saying trees. And that's not the way I engage myself properly. So I take that, look at your target, focus on your target. If I'm even in my business, in my life, as a parent, as a husband, I'm always trying to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish, to be better at and get the job done properly of what I'm trying to do.
That takes a lot of discipline.
I think it takes discipline. I think it takes an awareness of how important it is to begin with. And once you have that awareness of how important it is, I think it helps to make the discipline a more easy thing to face, if that makes sense. Like, we all have distractions. And so to have discipline to get your tasks done that you are planning to do and to go in the direction you're planning on going, there's always distractions. And that's what one of the many things professional golf gave to me is, it reminds me all the time, hey, Terry, don't look at the trees. Don't look at the water hazard. Don't look at the sand traps. Look at your target. Excuse me. Look at the green. Look at the flag where you're trying to hit it, whatever target you're trying to do. That helps me make discipline come easier. And I'm not perfect at it by any stretch. I'm always trying to get better at it. But that guiding notion, and knowing how important it is and seeing the results of it through golf, has always helped me along and kind of put me back on my path.
I find it so interesting that as you helped all these professional athletes deal with their grip issues, I had no idea how complex hands were.
Yeah. And I would say probably before I went out and played professional golf and joined these athletes, I knew a lot about how complicated the hands were, because in practice, I was seeing, so as a sports chiropractor, I was 50-50 sports and family as well. So I would see sports like hockey. I'm Canadian, so, by law, we have to, work in hockey, jokingly. But so we'd see a lot of hockey players. I dealt obviously with a lot of golfers, basketball, baseball, etc. I knew how complicated the grip was to some extent. I will say to some extent. And then when I went on to play professional golf, then I saw a lot more grip injuries. And I was way more specific with seeing wrist injuries, a lot of wrist injuries, a lot of elbow injuries. In fact, elbow injuries are the ones that really got me off my butt and said, I've got to figure out an easier way to exercise this area. For example, Pat, like when I was in practice, I would give my patients, I would study this stuff and I assume that my patients had all the time in the world, because I was maybe a little bit green on this issue. And I would give them 5 or 6 different exercises. They'd have elastics laying around, balls, spring-loaded stuff. And it got too complicated, and most wouldn't do it to the extent I would like, especially when they were out of pain. And this is what I really realized with the professional golfers. They don't have time to do all these different exercises. And, one morning, just from seeing this challenge and knowing that they have to close their hand against resistance and open and spread their hand against resistance, and then also be able to exercise the different forearm muscles that are engaged in grip. I knew I had to do something to make it simpler. And it was a 3 a.m. in the morning aha moment, is like, if I just put, if I put a elastic resistance band through a central ball, that should work to provide proper natural 3-dimensional resistance. And I remember just getting up and drawing it out. And that was the start of what Handmaster Plus is today. And Pat, I don't want to go on about this, but it really is the basis where people can learn from, is that most people traditionally think that muscles close your hand and that's it. And you do have 9 muscles that close your hand, but you also have 9 muscles that open and spread your hand. And they're kind of on the back of your fingers and thumb and hand and wrist and carpal tunnel and elbow. And the ones that close it are on the front side. But you also have forearm muscles that support grip, and there's 9 of those. So all of a sudden, you have to figure out, how are you going to get Mr. or Mrs. Jones to exercise their hands because it's really healthy to do. But how are you going to get this professional golfer that has all these different areas of their body to strengthen and all these different parts of their game to work on to do this easily? And that's what I took the task of doing. I didn't even really think I had to take the task. It just came to me. And now we can get people exercising those 27 muscles of their grip, full range of motion in one continuous exercise. And now it's realistic for anybody to do it. And especially, the people that are into grip sports or music or, computers, et cetera, workplace, et cetera.
Yeah, it really does go beyond sports, doesn't it?
It does. And my original goal was really sports. I was going to train the muscles and train the grip. And after I didn't make the PGA Tour, after they, more or less, I came to the conclusion that this would just take too long, and I was itching to get back in practice, I think. I got back, and then I remember having an arthritic patient, a lady that was just a wonderful patient. And I said, I wonder if I figured out how to manufacture it based on, consulting with people that knew what they were doing. And then I went back to them and said, can we just make a lighter one for people that have arthritis, for example, or just people that are weaker. And it was just like a medium strength ball to begin with to train my athletes and solve this problem, more of a wellness or preparing your grip properly. And then lo and behold, you start to see that people use their hands for other things other than golf, Pat, surprisingly enough. But it was just really obvious progression. And then we made that, and then all of a sudden we opened up like recovery exercises and stroke recovery and, arthritis and stuff like that, which are very, very, very important. And eventually there was also a firmer one made for the people that said, hey, this isn't firm enough for me. So it was all very organic. But the bottom line is it came from an understanding of how the hands are designed and how the hands and grip actually work, and just working with that and providing that solution based on the design of the hands that really nobody knew about, including especially the professional golfers.
My favorite part of your book, Great Hands, Great Life, is actually the very last chapter, where you talk about how hands are a metaphor for so many things in our lives. Talk about that a little.
It's probably the chapter that certainly came along the latest in my understanding of hands, but it's a metaphor. And I think you see these metaphors, I think I see metaphors in life everywhere. I saw them in golf. I see them but in the body, absolutely. I think the metaphor that I really had to get on my golfers and get on anybody that's in grip related activities is we don't just close the hand. If you just close the hand and you never open and spread the hand, you are going to create imbalance and pain. Okay. And I think for most people, once they understand 9 muscles closed and 9 muscles open, why wouldn't we balance those muscles? That just makes sense. And it stimulates blood flow and it does a whole bunch of great things. But when you equate it, and when I looked at that, and we were doing some talks and speaking and using the ball actually as that metaphor and talking about life. And what we do see is all the scenarios. If I do nothing but in my life, if I only take, if I only receive, in closing, as in the metaphor of closing the hand, but I never open and spread the hand, as if opening and being of service or giving or assisting or opening myself to the rest of the world, that causes pain and problems as well. And it's a direct metaphor, and I've seen it over and over throughout, when I'm in practice with my patients and with golfers that are really greedy. And the other thing I would say about that, Pat, is when I first came on that metaphor, I spoke to a lot of pertinent people about it, let's say that, and they were also blown away by that. But I also realized it helped to explain one thing that I also believe is that some people are just opening their hand. They just open, here, give, I'm going to give of myself, or I'm going to give you advice, but they've never brought in like an education. They've never brought in experience. They've never brought in, anything that would help them become, get to a level to properly give advice. For example, even in the hands, I ran across so many people. And as we started going to therapy trade shows, there was so many people still telling people that athletes might have come out of a cast, here, take this ball and squeeze it. Okay, well, that's not good advice to give. You're going to really minimize the amount, the imbalance of the hands if you give that advice. And actually, you could have some fibrosing where they actually lose their opening and spreading activity if you don't have them reestablish it. So I know that's a long explanation, but it is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, is that, to give of yourself without taking, to some extent, or without having a solid base, even in your life. There's a nice balance. If we can find that balance, the hands work better, the carpal tunnels work better, the elbows work better. If we find that balance, and your life works better if you can find that balance. And it's a tricky balance with your hands, and it's a tricky balance with your life. But I think we should be aware of it, and we should try to seek it.
Balance is an issue for me, in that I look at what the Buddhists say about find the middle way, which is essentially what you're saying, find the balance. But sometimes to find the middle way, you have to go careening off on one end, careening off on the other. And it's like you can't know dark without knowing light. Once you understand what the boundaries are, then you can find that middle way. But I think that sometimes, particularly in life, you have to have a range of experiences before you can start to find that balance.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think that is you've probably described the concept of discomfort and pain. I really think so. It was, well, I don't want pain in my life. I don't want discomfort in my life. Well, unless you are one of the most advanced beings that ever populated this earth, you are going to, you're going to have discomfort and pain. And that's not a bad thing. That's just an indicator and it's almost like a signpost to say, okay, you've got, the imbalance is a little too much now. Let's what do we learn here? How are we imbalanced? What's going on in my life? And if you have that capacity to review your life like that, or not even review yourself, you can also, go to expertise. You could go to a fitness expert, a health expert, a life expert, or whatever you're having the discomfort and pain in. It doesn't have to be yourself, but it is an indicator that the imbalance has gotten a little bit out of hand. I also, Pat, to speak on that same issue, I speak to athletes a lot about thriving. I don't want them to get to a point where there's discomfort and pain. I want them to learn to thrive. But what I'm saying is when you haven't learned to thrive, or you're still, looking at the trees and the bunkers and the thing instead of the target, you're going to eventually have that pain. And that's a teaching moment. It's not to be shut down. A lot of people say, well, take this thing and you're out of pain. Well, what did the pain tell you? It's a pain and discomfort are there as guideposts. And if we can get to the point where I do believe that the discomfort and pain comes less, if not at all, once we learn to manage our lives and our health, or whatever we're talking about, our performance in a way where we are focusing on thriving. I think you come to a level that it's less likely you're going to run into discomfort and pain.
I think embracing those moments of discomfort are tremendous learning experiences. And when you start to shift your perspective that way, your experience is different too. It's actually much more interesting.
Absolutely. I think there is ways where you can, once you do learn and you evolve, I think you almost transcend the discomfort and pain. But that's, again, once you evolve at anything. We could be talking golf, we could be talking life. I know that, Pat, when you and I talk, sometimes it all blends into one, but it does. And that's what that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be the best version of ourselves in all facets of our lives. And I think when we get to a place where we're seeing, I know with me, it's always helped when I think about how do I best serve my customer with the hands? How do I best serve it? Well, I find myself that I'm never bored. I'm never in discomfort. I'm never in pain. I'm always moving to my target. But once, the times where I'm thinking about, oh, poor me, why did this go wrong? Why did that go wrong? Why does this customer want this? Why is this? when I focus on me, I notice that the discomfort and the pain is, more there all the time. So it's getting into that balance thing when I find myself giving more of myself and definitely thinking more of how can I be of service to the whole, more in my life. I just find that you just transcend your own little problems and you don't drop into that place of consistent discomfort and pain. Sure, it's going to come sometimes, I guess, but the more you are, I feel like the more you're looking to be, how can I take this experience in my life, apply it, and be of best service? I find that I'm really thriving more than dropping into discomfort and pain.
Now, you're working on a new book, aren't you?
Yes, I am. And you're one of the few that know about it. But I'm working on a book that's a lot of what we're talking about. And the working title right now is Becoming Awful. And I know when I say it right off the bat, it doesn't sound right, but it's awe and full are two different words. And it is just coming to the point where we appreciate actually what we are, first of all, and goes in from like, let's do a whole new narrative. It goes into your sperm did this and knew to do this, and your egg did this and knew to do that. And how do you explain the intelligence? And then they got together and they started building themselves. And I'm, for the boring scientists out there, I'm into the zygote and the morula and the blastocyst stuff and how the layers of the body start. And it's not to bore people because it gets to be really common language, but I want people to understand you built yourself. Like, I've been involved in too many things where people are manipulated into believing that they're losers or they're not good enough or they're this or they're that. And it just, to me, is way too sad. And I want everybody, we all have this miraculous energy that is, built yourself. And if you think your ears are too big, which maybe I used to think when I was a kid, if you think your ears are too big, you kind of stop and think of the miracles of what these ears are and what they can do. And they can pick up this hearing and bring it back. And you can create language and thought and stuff out of it. It's becoming awful is basically getting out of the way of kind of traditional repetitive thinking and starting to look at your own life and valuing it. And I do believe that when people do see the miracle that they are, that they will apply their God-given talents and they'll contribute something great to the world. And that's what I'm trying to do with every reader. I'm only about 4 chapters in, but everything else is laid out and I've got jumble for the rest of the, I think 8 more chapters. But it's exciting. I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually glad you asked about it, but it's a passion project for sure. And it's something that even the golf thing that we're talking about led me more towards it, where I saw people just, it's just my hands. Who really cares? No. Those hands are miraculous. Understand them, treat them right, and your performance will go, up a notch or 2 or more than that.
I think it goes back to, is your glass half empty or half full? And I was telling you a story earlier about what Bernie Siegel had said to me many years ago. And I had a website, the Anti-Cancer Club, and it was named in homage to David Servan Schreiber, who wrote a remarkable book called The Anti-Cancer Living, I think it was. At any rate, Bernie told me a story. He told me about Mother Teresa. She was asked to go to an anti-war rally, and she said she would not go. But she said she would go to a pro-peace rally. And that story has stuck with me for years. I think it's so profound because it goes to focusing on what you want to do and create and what's good, not being against something.
That's such a deep lesson that I hope every one of your listeners, every one of your audience really pays attention to, because I think that's one of the big secrets. I mean, when I went to school, one of the things that stuck with me is there was a saying from one of my mentors that the body needs no help, it needs no interruption. And what that basically means is that understand, we have to somehow come to terms with understanding how positive this life is. Like, we've been given these gifts. Pat, you're different than I am. slightly. I'd say we've got a lot of things that cross over, but we have to be able to somehow get focused on our path. Like when you're talking about Mother Teresa saying, I will go to a pro-peace rally, that to me equates the exact same thing as I will aim at that spot in the fairway.
Absolutely.
And I know that, and I can say that without a speck of hesitation. That's when you perform better as well. So your energies are now, I believe, again, I've seen it over and over, and I've studied a lot of things in health that would agree with this as well, is that our body is always adapting perfectly to our environment or perceived environment. So if I'm putting smoke into my lungs, my body's still reacting very well to it, but it's got to start, it's like, wait a minute, I'm in a fire here. I'm going to start changing things in my body. Well, we don't want the body to have to go into some kind of protection, but your body is trying to help you. And I do think that we have to be very, very careful to focus on what we want and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do well for this world, because that's when our energies make us perform the best as well. If I'm trying to hit a ball in the fairway, I'm looking at a place that's in the fairway, a target that's in the fairway, and my body reacts to do it. Another famous saying by a professional golfer, I was a fan of his, he's passed on, is George Knudson. He's a Canadian golfer. And he said, give up control to gain control. And so, meaning that if I say I'm going to take a golf club and I'm looking at the fairway and I say, I'm going to put this golf club here, take it there, put it there, swing it there, and it's going to go there. Or do we, practice hard so that our body knows what to do and then look at that spot in the fairway, give up control and just let it happen? And the key part of that is your energy has to be focused on the positive of what you want to accomplish. So I agree with that statement completely. And I think you could see metaphors everywhere. And again, in my golf metaphor, I've tested it over and over. And if I'm thinking of the trees, I don't hit it at the spot I'm trying to hit it.
Letting go of control is interesting. And really, I think part of what you're alluding to is being in the flow. Flow is such a magical place.
Absolutely. If you think about it, again, I come from the more geeky side of performing something now. When I was a kid, I didn't. You look at I'll go back to golf. You look at a shot and you look at where you were trying to hit it and you swing and it goes there in general. But then when you get into studying, if I studied everything that completely happens intellectually in a golf swing, okay, this area of the brain stimulates this spinal nerve that goes down and it connects with this peripheral nerve and it stimulates this muscle and that muscle and this muscle and that muscle. You could never pull a golf club back. You could never start a golf swing if you thought that much. So, the giving up control part of it means that there is an intelligence within each of us that gets these activities done. If I was to throw an egg at you, Pat, and you were to catch it, you don't have to explain all the things that it's not an intellectual. Most accomplishments aren't intellectual. They're way more energy. We are energy. We're not this mechanical intellect that sometimes we get sucked into doing. Now, in a sport like golf, yes, I have to train myself to mechanically do this. And it takes some intellect and some practice to train my body to do it. But like to do the general things, the grip, the stance, your balance, your rhythm, a lot of things need to be trained and repeated to build those neuromuscular pathways. But when it comes to performing on a golf course, especially at a professional level, there's a lot of people watching. And, something goes wrong, you can embarrass yourself a lot or hurt somebody with a golf ball. But that's when you just have to, that's when you have to get back to being at play, letting it happen. You can't make those types of things happen. And what you're talking about in the flow is about letting it happen. You can't make the flow happen. The flow is an energy, that's an energy process. And it's see it, do it, believe it, and it's got to be done on a higher level than mechanical.
Yeah, I remember landing one day. I used to fly sailplanes, high performance sailplanes, And, you start off as a student and you have a very narrow point of view. You're looking at your instruments. You're worried about this or that. You don't really let your vision open up. It takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, a lot of time. And then your vision starts to open up. And when that happens, and when you almost automatically respond to whatever the air or the energy around you is doing, you become one with it. It's really incredible. And I can remember landing one day when I was flying back east, and you come down into ground effect and you just linger there for a while. So it's just fascinating. And as you settle onto the grass strip, you can almost feel the individual blades of grass caress the bottom of the plane. And then, you come to a stop, the energy is dissipated. And it's like you wake up out of a dream. You were so one with everything. And it's just, I think flow is a remarkable place. And wherever you can find it, whether it's cooking, whether it is knitting, whether it is in golf or another sport, I think I would wish for everybody to have that optimal experience.
It's the best. It really is the best. And your story makes me think of so many things. I don't want to just stay and be Mr. Self-promotion, but I wrote a book years ago. It's called The Power of Golf, because I'm so moved by the game still to this day. And in the book, there's an old man. He's a range picker, like he's supposed to be a nobody, but he takes this young hotshot golfer on many different daily trips to teach him different lessons. And one of the lessons is about balance, and he takes him to a circus tightrope walker. And so when and he has the kid observe what's happening with the posture of this tightrope walker. And your story reminded me of that, because I can talk to you about golf. And this is what basically the old man character said, is that if golf demanded the balance that a tightrope walker, the attention and the outcome could be as bad as the tightrope walker, you'd pay more attention to balance. And so my metaphor of talking about golf, if I happen to be off balance, Pat, and I make a bad shot and it goes into the trees, well, I just tee up another golf ball. Really, nobody gets hurt. Your experience, your thing is, if anything happens where your balance comes off, I mean, it sounds like pretty bad things could happen. But the bottom line is, I think that gets you to be more acute and intuitive.
And it's that focus that is part of what gives you that peak experience.
The focus in some degree of the balance of a bit of a threat gets your attention and gets you to be acute to your best, to the best of your ability. And you find those energies that are higher than what your intellect can give you. And I do think that's a really key thing. When you get to, in a golf tournament, and you get to something that's really valuable, really important to you, making a cut, making qualifying school, winning a golf tournament, making a check. There's so many different things. And it is the test. It's like, almost like flying a plane. Do you panic, or do you go into a peaceful place and just do your business like normal? And if your intellect is telling me, or if you've, reached a limit in what you believe about yourself, you can have real problems there. And so that's to be able to call on giving up control and on just becoming one with what you're doing, and forget about the intellect for a while. You have to fall back on your training. And it's important that you get into the flow in very important situations. And I've had it in golf where I've done well with that. And I've done where I've, basically thrown up on myself. When I remember one particular qualifying school that I played the worst round of golf probably in my professional life when I needed it the most. And again, there was that discomfort and pain, and I learned so much from that day. I appreciate that day to this day.
It's always our bumps that, are our greatest teaching lessons, I think.
I would agree with that. I've learned, I think we learn so much from if we're aware though, like again, still we have to come to the point where or our mentors or somebody that's influenced us has said, go out there, participate, get close to the fire and see what happens. And believe in yourself. And I think that's where you've got to pick something that you're passionate about. Myself was golf, but also with healthcare. and you stick your nose out there and you learn. But the bumps often are the real directors that get you kind of up to where you are flying, basically. And when you're learning something, there's a lot of bumps. And as you get better and better and better, I think that's where, that flow principle comes into play. But the bumps always happen first. You're always bad until you're really good. And then you bump more, and then you can get great.
If you could give people a quick checklist of things for their health, what would be on that checklist?
I would say the first thing I always think that is the most important thing for your health is your attitude, is your energy. How do you look at your life? And we talked about it. Your attitude will affect every single cell in your body. So if I've got a loving perspective, which underneath it all, and that's one of the reasons, I can't believe we talked about the new book that hasn't even come yet, but the old book, The Great Hands, Great Life, Pat says a lot of the same things, is that we really need to be the leader of our life. And we have to look at something that we can do positively, that we think we have a passion and some degree of skill at, and then follow that path and contribute something to the world. And so something positive to the world. I think if we all did that, the world would be a whole different place. But that comes from a place of energy. So when I'm the leader of my own body and I'm always mad at myself, or I was, oh, you stupid Terry, you stupid this, you stupid that, that energy goes to every single one of our cells, and we have to acknowledge that. So we really have to watch doing things out of negativity and fear. We have to really be careful about that. And so if I could say one tip to the listeners, I would say be very aware of your energy. Be going towards, just like the golf scenario that we started with. If I want to hit it down the fairway, aim it. Put your aim down the fairway. Put your aim on what you're trying to do positively for yourself, for the world, for your family, for your wife, your husband, your kids, whatever, and stick on that. Your energy, when it becomes negative, be very, very careful, because every single cell in your body gets that message.
Where can people find your current book, Great Hands, Great Life?
Great Hands, Great Life is available mostly through Amazon is the best way. There's also a link to it on our website at doczac.com. And if anybody ever needs to get a hold of me, if they got a question or anything about hands or we do have a stretching program as well that I find just keeps people in balance, and it's an easy daily thing that people used to have a hard time with when they stretch for a half an hour. Not even I would do it. So we developed a 3-minute stretch. They can find it at doczac.com, or they can contact me at info@doczac.com anytime. And I love answering questions. I will answer every question.
Thank you for listening. I hope you'll support this podcast by becoming a Bump 2 subscriber. Buy us a cup of coffee. It's your support that makes this podcast and website possible. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life.